Public relations veteran and owner of storytelling PR gurus GinjaNinja, Samantha Hogg, has recently launched a book titled Making Hotdogs, a quirky guide to building a career in PR and making life awesome. This book is Samantha's passion project that took over the last 2 years of her life and speaks of a notable experience in the PR tech sector and building her own business over the past 19 years. And to help us unpack what's currently cooking in the world of PR as she details it in this offering, Samantha joins us now in studio. Samantha, good to see you. A very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Good to have you on the show this morning. Lovely stuff. Now, before we get into the crux of the book, let's talk about your own journey as, in the PR industry. How has that journey been?
It's been an incredible career. I am self-taught, so at 19 I spoke my way into a job in a PR firm in Boksburg. And sorry, not a PR firm, an engineering firm in the PR department.
Yes.
And I worked there for a couple of years and then was seconded across to help them diversify into tech. And then the client decided to reverse, and I was collateral damage, and then I found the world of PR agencies.
Okay.
And then I worked for an international PR agency until I was their first South African country manager appointed.
Okay.
And did that for several years, working on blue chip brands. And then in 2003 decided to start my own PR business.
I mean, what really triggered you to go at it alone?
To be honest, it was a health concern. I was 30 years old and was battling to fall pregnant, and the specialist told me that I needed to look at my lifestyle. And I was country manager. I had 3 divisions, lots of consultants, working in the tech sector, working for big brands like Microsoft and Cell-C and Intel and all the blue chip brands, and it was a very stressful position.
Yeah.
And I figured, well, you would think that it would be easier to stay there than run your own business, but it worked. And I started the business in 2003 pregnant with my first daughter. So.
Oh wow, that's always a happy ending.
So, yes, absolutely, and her name is Hope, and that's why.
Oh right. Now let's talk about this book and why you decided to write it, and why use hot dogs as an analogy.
Yes, the publishers were not all convinced about the title, but people love it. And I love it because it's kind of who I am, just left of center. So it's not your average business book. Yeah. And it looks at 3 decades of PR, but also 3 decades of my life. And it's also a passion project because I absolutely love PR after all these years. And I'm looking to create awareness of the tool, but not only for business, but for young adults as well, so that they could consider a career in PR. Because where we are going in business and communications, PR is probably one of the most vital tools.
Yeah, and this book solely focuses on PR and about 30 years of spinning. Tell us more about this.
Spinning. 30 years of spinning with big brands and small brands and no-name brands that are now very, very successful. It takes it from when I was 15, actually, and how I started hustling. I was a child, I think, with an undetected attention deficit disorder, and so I didn't do well academically. And I then, in the book, look back at the traits that I should have seen in myself, even at 15 years old, that made me what I am today. And I'm touring universities at the moment, doing book launches all over, chatting to honor students and communication students, and hopefully motivating them and providing some inspiration that, no matter what life throws at you, and even if you think you don't have what it takes, you probably do.
Sure.
And the title, Making Hotdogs, is literally the first job I got when I worked in the engineering firm.
Oh, really?
I had to wait 6 months for the job because of their financial year end. And I get there, and we're going to Nazareth to do an exhibition in the middle of winter. And they say to me, you're going to have to make hot dogs for a week. So I made hot dogs for a week. Wow. And I had frozen toes, and here I am today. And the point is, we have a generation of instant gratification children as well. And what I'm saying is, do what is necessary. Do the work. If don't think you are better than making hot dogs.
Sure.
I made hot dogs, and here I am.
And it's such a beautiful analogy, you know, in as much as this book may serve as a guide and a business book, but I suppose it also takes an intimate look at your life, what you went through, and all the hurdles that you had to overcome along the way. And here you are today. And I suppose then it will be a source of inspiration for so many people, for so many women who've been through what you've been through, and you know, and budding entrepreneurs as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's definitely about entrepreneurship, the power of it, the power of women entrepreneurs.
Sure.
I'm a single mom of 2 girls, and I raised them from 2 and 7 on my own, and it definitely is about that.
Yeah.
And yeah, if I can make a difference in one life, in one book launch, you know, event, then I'm happy.
Yeah. How does PR rope in people and dig deep into how we can and we should relate to one another?
Well, it's interesting. I was listening to the previous interview now, and
Yes.
she was talking about authenticity. And in the world of communications and marketing, probably the best tool to display authenticity is through PR. It has a complexity and a depth to it that is needed. And, you know, if you look at where the world is going at the moment, we're in a huge cycle of distrust. And the only tool, in my view, that can really get to the heart of a business, of a person, is through storytelling. And, you know, I actually refer to GinjaNinja as storytelling mavericks, because that's what we do every day. We tell stories about brands, and people are behind the brands. And we need to build brands for people, by people. And that's why I think PR is so important, and it's underrated and undervalued.
Well, I don't actually think that it's underrated and undervalued. I think that PR is a very, very powerful tool, because it can, change or influence mindset and the mindset of the people, and it can head a it can turn a company into a certain direction, isn't it?
And it does every day. But people don't realize that it's PR, and that's, I think, why I'm a ninja, because it is so subtle. And, you know, we're in sleuth mode the whole time. So you don't even realize, and what I'm telling the children in the varsities is, you don't even realize that you are reading PR, that you are part of the cycle, because it is so subtle. But it has integrity, and it has soul, and it has heart. And that's what is needed. But in business, you see, so we can look at it as people and go, well, it makes sense. But for example, I'm in the tech industry, and I must now tell a startup business why they need PR. And that's a harder sell. Also because we don't guarantee outcomes. You can't guarantee PR. And I always say, in pitch situations, if a PR agency says, I can guarantee you coverage, you're either going to pay for it or they're lying.
Yeah, indeed. Now, do share with us and our fellow viewers the tips for starting and succeeding in PR.
Well, I think you need to be passionate, for one.
Sure.
I have for years believed that, and even at my book launch, and it was quite ironic because Arthur Goldstuck, who's a well-known media personality, did a talk for me and on me, and the one thing he said was passion. And I believe that you have to have passion, and you have to be willing to work 200%.
Yeah.
You need to be honest and be authentic. You need to do the work that's necessary. You need to read. You need to be creative, you need to be lateral thinking, you need to multitask. But if the will is there, you can do it. Just put in the work.
Sure.
Find an angle, put in the work. I'm in tech space. I fell into it, but I love it. I love deciphering tech speak into business speak. I love taking startups from nowhere to, you know, getting millions in seed funding. And that's what we do. I'm working with a startup now from 2018 who's on the brink of, I think it is 30 million in funding. And they use the PR as their silver bullet, because the investors love seeing the PR.
What do you do? Do you offer mentorship to startup business people, or do you simply connect them to funders?
We end up mentoring them by default. But yes, we help them communicate. We help them figure out what their narrative is. What is their story? How can they very succinctly tell the industry what their technology is and why it matters?
Sure.
We create awareness of the leaders to a point where the leaders, one of my clients is now in the finals of a IT Personality Award. And that is through introducing him through PR. They don't do advertising. They don't even do events. They do PR. And that is the magic potion that has got this guy now into the finals. And this is probably my 3rd or 4th client that has reached that. And I've had clients who've won these things.
Right. So how do people connect with you in terms of getting a copy of this book and perhaps getting to know about your company?
GinjaNinja.co.za is a wonderful website. We've actually got an e-commerce plug-in where you can buy the book and T-shirts. got beautiful hot dogs on them in specific places, which I won't discuss.
Right.
Because I'm quirky and a little off-center.
Right.
So on GinjaNinja.co.za you can find everything, my contact details. I am open to helping anyone further themselves, further their business, their careers. So I welcome contact.
Great stuff, Samantha. And you say that this book has brought you so much joy, love, tears as well. And just take us through, some of the hurdles and what you've been through before compiling this book.
Yeah, writing a book, I thought, I can write a book. It is a journey that I can't quite describe. You love it, you hate it. You think you can write, you think you're a rock star. Then the next day you think you're useless. And then I would go and like my fiance Dennis says, I would write sporadically and fast. And then I'd almost vomit it out. And then for a few days I can't touch it, I can't look at it. And then I go back to it and then I change it. And it was incredible. But I think it was a wonderful thing for someone who's been a bit of a low self-esteem overachiever all her life to look back. And I think it's a wonderful thing for my daughters to see that, you've got to have tenacity, you've got to have grit, you've got to be determined, you've got to keep pushing. You can never give up. I also have some autoimmune issues, significant autoimmune issues, and some days are not easy for me, and I live with chronic pain. But that is not an excuse. I can't give in to it. You've got to keep trying. I've got to do my Pilates. I've got to keep running. The doctors told me you're not allowed to run. I'm like, well, I'll show you. And I run because I don't want to shorten my lifespan. So I think the book was a wonderful reminder to me about what I've achieved, but then also inspirational to my incredible team at GinjaNinja. I've got the most amazing people that work there and support me.
Okay.
So I think it's had an effect on everybody in a way, but I can tell you it's probably the hardest thing I've done professionally.
Unfortunately, we're out of time, Samantha. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I think you should add motivational speaker as one of your titles because I'm so motivated by your story.
Thank you very much.
All the best, Samantha. Thank you. Well, that was entrepreneur and author Samantha Hogg, and we're just in conversation with her about her new book titled Making Hotdogs.